going to talk about OpenAPI. It's something that has really changed the way that I work. I've been working with APIs for a long time, some of them in Symfony. And I think it's really relevant to all of us as web developers to think about whether it's a traditional API where you know, we're making our web functionality available to machines in a programmatic sense, or whether it's other types of third-party integrations and stuff like that. It's on my radar because I work at a company called Vonage. You probably know us as Nexmo. We rebranded because that is always fun. So we publish communications APIs, that's what we do. So I talk about APIs all the time. We use OpenAPI. I didn't choose this, it was there when I got there, and it's brilliant. So I want to tell you about it. I'm going to start by asking you to take part in a poll. So we're going to do a poll. I want to know where you are with OpenAPI, with API descriptions. Are you already familiar with the topic? Who am I talking to? Who's here? So I think poll magic will occur. It's not in my control, so fingers crossed. There we go. As if, yeah, the magic did occur. So I want to know where you are, and I want to introduce you to this if you are new to it. Now, you might have heard something called Swagger a few years ago. The standard OpenAPI, I like to say formerly known as Swagger. Chances are, if you're saying Swagger today, you don't mean Swagger. That was a proprietary standard from Smart Bear, who did loads of really good work with this API description. And they donated that standard to the community, and it became OpenAPI. And with a bunch of excellent collaborators, and those are big companies, small companies, individuals, all sorts of different people, we had a version 3 release. That was about 5 years ago. So definitely not called Swagger anymore. You'll sometimes see it in tool naming because Smart Bear still use it as a tool. So that's all good. What is OpenAPI? It is a description of your API. And it is a description so complete and verbose that even the machines can understand it. So it's a way of describing APIs in a way that we can then use that as a source of truth for other things. Did you all click on the poll already? Gonna see if we got the results. I hope you were quick. Oh, a bunch of people already working with API descriptions. That is amazing. Quite a lot of people aware of it. Great, never heard of it. You're in the right place too. I'm just here to see the other speaker. See, I knew we needed this option in our poll. I feel I'm winning. Excellent. So we've got this API description, and what can we do with it? Well, traditionally, we think of API descriptions as being for documentation. So that's where I first ran into it. I think it's probably still one of the best use cases. It was certainly one of the first use cases where you could take an OpenAPI description and generate pretty nice looking web docs. I'm not saying that's not a good use. Actually, I would never consider writing API docs any other way now. But because they're not just docs, they're coming from this formal description, we can do a bunch of other things. So today I'm going to show you, first of all, the spec and the tools that I use to wrangle this thing, technical term. And then I'm going to show you around some of the fun things you can do with it once you've got one. So first of all, let's talk about a spec. Now, the Vonage API specs are all on GitHub. Let's see what see if I opened so many windows trying to fix, trying to work out where I could share to and from and how I was going to get my screen on screen. Couldn't find my browser. So these are our API specifications. If you look in the definitions folder, this is all of them. Today I'm going to show you one of the smallest ones, which is, it's called Number Insight. So Number Insight is an API that lets you put in a phone number and find out some stuff about it. The spec for it, as you can see from the header on this file, is 1,115 lines long. I chose it because it's one of our smallest and simplest specs. This tells you everything you need to know about working with OpenAPI, right? Not rocket science, but absolutely verbose and unwieldy. You don't want to work with this thing raw, and neither do I. Actually, I do work with it nearly raw, but like in Vim with folding and that kind of thing. So the best editor to start with when you begin working with this stuff is the editor that you already know, right? Your coders. You already know, you're already super users of whatever it is that you write your code in. Yes, I use Vim. You will never get me to recommend that to anyone else. I love it and won't change. So your favorite is the right thing for you, whether it's VS Code. I've used Atom before. It plugs in nicely to the JetBrains family, so PHP Storm. You've got a bunch of options. Let's have a look. Oh, I should have left VS Code running because it's a bit of a beast to start. Yeah, let's do that. VS Code. In VS Code, I have some of the OpenAPI linters plugged in. So you can see here, let me turn up my font size a bit. You can see here it gives me the syntax highlight and also puts that extra decoration on for indentation. You really, really need the helper syntax when you're working with this much YAML. I am getting better at spotting indents over many different lines, but not great. Having code folding and syntax highlight will help a lot, but start with what's going on in your own editor as a recommended first tool. What's the best tool? You choose. There are also some you can use JSON for OpenAPI, JSON YAML based tools that give you a bit more support. So those are specific to working with OpenAPI. One example would be Stoplight Studio. And I'll drop you a whole load of links to deal with this. Wow, this font size is tiny. There's no way you can see this. Okay, bigger. Oh, it got a little bit bigger, but not much. Let's see if I can make this better for you. Oh, it's responsive. Excellent. Okay, well, we'll just scroll a lot. I've got a pointing device here. So this is Number Insight. And you can pick the spec that you want from the left. And that shows you, that closes the file you're working on, thanks. And that shows you the different routes that we have available, what you can do with it. So you can scroll down here. This validation is taking up too much space. No, can't resize it, never mind. You can scroll down here, you can look at individual endpoints. You can see the fields that are in these endpoints. I could, before it was tiny. And you can click the preview to see the spec as it's rendered. So you can see here's the fields that I need to send in the authorization. Every endpoint has the format in the URL. And these are the query parameters that we're going to send. See the try it button? That does what you think it's going to do. I've got some other tricks to show you. Tools like this, which kind of give you a more human user interface, really help you to work with OpenAPI. I like Stoplight, and I think we're going to try and standardize on this and learn it more as a team. If you haven't seen it, I'd really recommend it. Now, if you look down in the bottom half of my screen, I have some error messages. They're actually just warnings. And if you look very closely over here, it says powered by Spectral. Spectral's an open source project. It's written in JavaScript and it's a linter. This is what we use to make sure that our specs all do what we expect them to do. Now you can use it here in Stoplight Studio, which is nice, but that relies on everybody who works with your specs using the same tool. It's also a standalone tool. You can install it with NPM and then run it from the command line. So, oh, I've lost my terminal. It's around here somewhere. Not that one. This one. Too many windows and only one screen share. So this is Spectral. I'm running lint on the OpenAPI, the number insight spec. You can see I've got a bunch of warnings here. It's mostly warning me about operation tags, and it's also warning me about a valid content schema example. I'm not that bothered about the warnings. So I can turn off some of these rules. If I run it like this with the -s, then you can see I can turn off those valid schema example errors. I'm not bothered. We don't have them in our specs yet, so I'm turning those rules off while I work on it. And so now I have this. This is useful because you don't need any special tools to work with it. You edit the YAML, you run the standalone tool. That's all you need. You can also fit it into your continuous integration pipelines, which is really, really important when you're working with this stuff all the time. Awesome. Now, you've seen the specs. I'm going to do a quick poll. We are working with YAML. You can also do this with JSON. It doesn't matter which one you do. And I'd love to know which one you prefer. I didn't choose YAML. I think I could argue passionately in favor or against either JSON or YAML. It's very much a matter of choice. As you can see, I got a third troll option, as I saw Joe call it, in my poll, just because, you know, I think you're a community with a sense of humor. We'll find out if I'm right about that. I'm also watching the chat, so if you've got questions as I go through, please just type, and I will take them when I can. There's a Q&A window somewhere, but I haven't seen that for a bit. Here it is. Okay, can we get the GitHub URL? Yeah, absolutely. There's a button for type answer. So I'm going to type this while you vote on the poll. When I say type, I mean go and copy and paste it from the other screen, right? Oh, that's not focused correctly. Over here, this one. Excellent. Ready, paste. Good. And now let's have a look at the result of the polls. Oh, it's a close run thing. Oh, okay. That's really interesting. I expected to have a lot of YAML recommendations in the Symfony community. So it's good to know that you're all so well-rounded and open to new things. That is awesome. Yeah, I'm working with YAML, like I say, but I don't feel strongly about it. So think about what we have here. A few thousand lines of YAML, which describe every aspect of the spec. So we've got, in fact, let me just go back and you can have a quick look around. I'm going to scroll, which I know can be hard to follow, but we'll give it a try. We've got the beginning section here, the info section tells you, it's just like an overview. What is this? Where are its docs? How do I get in touch with the developers? What version are we on? That kind of stuff's really important. When you use tools that help to create OpenAPI specs, or you create them from scratch, lots of tools don't render all of these fields, and the temptation is to skip on some of them. Don't skip the metadata, right? OpenAPI in the future will be the way that we discover new APIs. We'll be putting our specs into catalogs for people to find us and integrate with us. So don't skip on the metadata, because it's a note to future other developers and possibly yourself. The next interesting bit here is paths, which starts here on line 24. We have a URL. We can have some parameters that are common to all of the verbs, and then we start stacking verbs here. So I've got a path, which is basic, and then the format. Allegedly, this API also supports XML. I only ever use it with JSON. Everything has a unique operation ID. This is used in all sorts of places. So name things really well. It's used not just in titles and internal hyperlink names, but when you come to generate code, it's also used in method names and that kind of thing. So we describe some stuff you can imagine. This ends up in the docs. We've got a list of parameters, and then we describe the responses that we can get back. Notice this, $ref. OpenAPI has the ability to refer to things declared in other places. So something like this format parameter is used on every endpoint. I shouldn't have to copy paste this format parameter all over my description as I would with documentation. So the compiler assists us by allowing us to have reusable definitions. The key of a great API is consistency. So I love this feature because I feel like it really encourages it. Let's go and have a look at this components parameters section. Of course, I'm on GitHub, so there's no code folding, but here we go. Components, parameters, format. This is that format parameter. We've got a description, we've got an example, and we've got some actual schema specs. So if it has to be a string or has to be a number or has to be within a certain range, you can describe all of that here. The tools that work with your API can then enforce that on the client side. It makes your integrations so much smoother. One thing I really appreciate about OpenAPI is this example field. It encourages you to show the user how it's used. For example, with phone number, the description says a single phone number that you need insight about in a national or international format. I don't really know what that means, but the example shows me a UK formatted phone number starting with a 44 and no plus. I can instantly see what it's for. So the examples lend themselves really well to documentation, and you'll see them in a few other places too. I've waffled about documentation. Let's see some real documentation. So first up, I'm going to show you a tool called Redoc. It's one of my favorites, and don't put it on that window. Over here, good. I got two screens, one of them's being shared. Where did the script put Google Chrome? On the other screen, excellent. Okay, so this is the number insight that you've just seen the description for. Here's the basic number insight endpoint that we just looked at the path entry for. Here's the example of the format and the example of the number. So we can generate the documentation here and immediately work with it. I think this is quite responsive too. There's normally examples somewhere. Here's the example. It's responsive as well. Did you know responsive was a verb? It's responsive. It's here. It's normally in the right-hand pane. So you may recognize this API format, API docs format. So you can see there's a response. It's in JSON. The sample response looks like this. It describes everything you can expect. Some of the specs also describe errors or different types of responses you might get for different types of objects that are returned by your API. The nice thing about using OpenAPI as the source for your documentation is the separation between content and presentation, because you can use any different tool that you want to. If I go back over here and instead of running Redoc, I run a tool called Nexmo Oas renderer. This is a Nexmo/Vonage tool. The browser is not only on the wrong desktop, it's also not loaded. There we go, that's better. Same source, same endpoints, basic number insight, same idea, same basic thing. So there's the response squeezed in the side there because I've turned the font size up huge. And again, the path parameters, how do I scroll? There we go. You can see, oh, I need to send the API key, the API secret, a number. This is how we describe our APIs. Amazing. So even if I stopped here and said, OpenAPI is great, you should use it for your docs, you'd all go away feeling like you'd learned something new. I'm going to take a question from chat, and then I'm going to show you a few more things that I like to do with my OpenAPI spec. Mark is asked, hi Mark, hello. Mark is asking, I'm wondering what your opinion is of generating OpenAPI specs via annotations in code as opposed to hand editing. I would still design first versus code first, just for generation. I think if you're having problems with Stoplight, try it again, wait for the 2.0 release, and then try it again. It's a couple of weeks away, I think. It's imminent. I absolutely hate code generation. And that's really interesting, particularly in this community where you do so much with annotations. And in fact, I feel like if anyone can do this right, it probably is the Symfony community, right? Because you know how to maintain things that are not your code in your code. Or lots of other communities and other tech stacks don't really do that. So like Java developers, Symfony developers probably could handle it. Everybody else would rather they didn't try. The reason I dislike it is because OpenAPI is so much about examples and also all these different summary fields and descriptions, they're microcopy, right? For documentation, they are in their own right very important. I work with tech writers, they are a gift for this stuff. It is hard. And I don't really, first of all, I love to have really exhaustive examples. Number Insight isn't the one with the most examples. You want to see examples, look at Verify API, the spec, not the rendered version. Having all of that stuff in your code base is going to get on your nerves. If you don't have a spec and you want to have one, by all means generate a starter spec, but then I'd rather it went the other way. I'd rather for each new thing or each change, you generated the stubs and then fleshed it out with the business logic. So I'd rather that you did it that way around. Generating, if you're retrofitting an API spec, works pretty well. Generating as like a maintenance thing, not really awesome. And I'd prefer to see the spec as the single source of truth. I also think starting with the spec is exactly how you do design first. You've seen, oh, you can generate docs from it. This is perfect. You don't give a spec to engineering and then just hope, right? Everyone can get in on the design phase and understand it. The product people, the business people can get in with the documentation. It's complete. They've understood it. It leads us to have conversations about what to do with errors or other edge cases. However, as an engineer, I can also generate a mock server and poke at it with curl exactly as I would when I'm meeting a new API for the first time. Oh, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? What happens if I change the format? Wait, that's completely different. Hang on, this error message makes no sense. That's not what I did wrong, right? I can do that because I've got the spec and it's much cheaper to change things or fix things at that stage. So I am all about spec first. If it's generated spec or no spec, do it, right? It's not a crime, but it's not my preference. This was a huge tangent. Thanks, Mark. Okay, good. Another thing I want you to know about these specs is, you see this big black download OpenAPI 3 button? Click it, get a YAML file. And this is, remember, you can come to this API reference documentation as a customer. You want to integrate, in fact, I didn't put the Nexmo Vonage, we've rebranded, Vonage coupon in the chat, but I can. If you need Vonage credit, prompt me when I've finished and I'll put it in. Download OpenAPI 3 definition, and I get the downloaded number insight here. With this file, as a complete outsider interested in using this API for the first time, I can, for example, import it into Postman, which I did remember to open first. Oh, but I didn't delete the collection. Let's just pretend that wasn't already here. Go away. So the way this works in Postman is you use the import button. I'm importing a file. It is this one that I just downloaded. Import. Right, never seen this API before. Too many open tabs. Don't you start with too many open tabs. I've got too many open windows. Go away. Let's save. Right, no, right, good. So here we have, did that not import or did I just press the wrong button? Sorry, I am going to press that button again because I feel like I confused myself there. Here it is. Yes. Please import. There it is. Number Insight API. Good. So within the Number Insight API is a basic Number Insight endpoint, and we can go ahead and use this API. We've got a base URL here. We've got, I need to put in the number. So we'll look up a real number. This is my burner work phone. I rotate when bad things happen to it because I use it on demos all the time. There's a couple of things. I need to have my creds here as well. So I need to add my API key. So I'm using the Postman environment variable stuff. So it can just add my API key and API secret here. And it also sets the base URL correctly. API secret, I've not spelled that right. API secret. Tristan says he likes companies with APIs that also give Postman collection downloads. Yeah, Tristan, I'm on the fence. We've been publishing this OpenAPI collection. I'm not sure what I would get from publishing a Postman collection as well, because I want ready-made API requests that I can send, and I've got those. This setting is wrong. I want my real live creds. Okay, and we'll press send. That's the response from the real API. So from downloading the spec, opening the request, filling in my creds and the other variables that I want to send, here's the API response. So in terms of trying out a new API or allowing people to try out your new API, I love this. I'm with Tristan that a quick start in Postman is super valuable, but I haven't understood why I should maintain an extra Postman collection. So answers in the chat for that. There's a question in the Q&A section. I read you can spoof a number. Would this help in any way to catch it? So this is not a product pitch, but I'm going to answer the question anyway. The Number Insight API gives you that we've got 3 endpoints: basic, standard, and advanced. They give increasing amounts of information and they cost increasing amounts of money. This will tell you if it's a real one and not much else, so it can help you to validate phone numbers. The standard Number Insight one, in fact, if we just flip the URL, because it is really that similar. Alexa, stop. Really, no one invited you. The standard one will give you a little bit more information and the carrier might help. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. What else is going on? Good. So importing into Postman is a massive use case for OpenAPI. And again, I could stop here and that would be great. I want to show you one more thing before I wrap up. And that is a tool called Prism. Now it's built in Stoplight Studio. You've got like a mock server button, but again, it's available as a standalone tool, which is the way that I usually use it. It's a mock server. So it reads the OpenAPI spec, starts a local web server and says, hello, I am pretending to be the Number Insight API. Ask me anything. And then when you send requests to it, it responds with mock responses. So that's really, really useful. So for example, the advanced version of Number Insight costs money. I work a lot with Verify API, which is like a 2-factor auth API. And with that, if you make requests and you don't confirm with the PIN code, eventually you get blacklisted. So sometimes I have terrible connection. So sometimes it's just better to be able to use a pretend version of the API. I'm building one of our SDKs at the moment, and the number of API requests I make, I think my manager would get fed up of topping up my account. So the mock version is great. So Prism, where's my terminal? Let's just kill off this because I don't need it. Okay. So this is Prism in action. And again, it's npm install Prism, Prism mock, name of OpenAPI spec. So the user interface is really simple. It comes up like this, and it tells you about all the different endpoints that it understands. and it's listening. So you can read the last line, which says Prism is listening on localhost 4010, and that's its default port. You can control it. Now come with me back to Postman, where by the magic of environments, I can flip over to Prism, repeat this request, and have it return all sample data. So this is everything that's coming from the OpenAPI spec. Prism also supports requesting some different responses. So if you have a bunch of example responses, you can request those. If you want to get error statuses, see how it looks when you send a bad param, it does that as well. So you can test a bunch of things by using Prism. And I'm using it so much just for testing things. I don't need to wait to hit the real API or put my real creds into the demo or whatever it is. I don't need to do that. I can just straight away have it locally. It's fast, it's quick, and all the fields are correct in terms of format. I mean, then it has to go and survive contact with the real thing, but the specs match, so actually it works pretty well. We had one where there was a feature that we were launching at an event. We don't do this very often, but it was a big thing, and it was a marketing thing and whatever. The feature wasn't quite ready, so we agreed on a spec. We created the SDKs, we being the developer relations team. The engineers shipped the feature, both according to the spec, and yeah, on the day we plugged it all in and everything worked. And for me, that's the magic of this. It's not really about, oh, we're Vonage, we use API specs and everything's amazing. It's for the advantage of people who have to integrate with these things. It does help internal API development, but the power is in other people using it and us, definitely. I missed a whole load of chat questions. So wouldn't it be better if Postman could consume OpenAPI without a separate format? Wouldn't it? That's not fair, actually. Postman lets you do all kinds of extra, really custom stuff that's just for Postman. So it's like having API documentation, but the colors are also defined in the spec, right? And I don't want that. Content, presentation. And Postman kind of has that you can set up some tests and things. I don't want that. I just want a reusable API thing that I can use with lots of different tools. Maybe there's a tool to generate Postman collections from OpenAPI. Mark, there is a tool, but also Postman supports import, so I haven't understood which of those we should do. One thing that I think might be useful, and you can tell me if you think it would be, is somehow in the documentation labeling, like press this button to do a thing with Postman. Yeah. Okay, another question. What do you think about API blueprints when it's compared to OpenAPI? I'll be honest, I haven't used API blueprints specifically, or RAML, which is the MuleSoft one. I think API descriptions in general are a good thing. I love OpenAPI because it's open, because it's easy for people to get involved. I think the thing with OpenAPI is it's some of the big players collaborating on a spec that we can all share. It's intentionally open. Because OpenAPI is open, the tools are open. So I can pick anything and change my mind. I don't have to get a license and then I'm stuck with it, or I can't add another collaborator, or some of those other tools, tales that I hear from other parts of the API landscape, like that's not a thing. So I haven't used the others, and maybe they're superior, but I see lots of companies coming over to OpenAPI. There are lots of conversion tools around, and because it's open, the tools are open. There's no reason to not interoperate with OpenAPI. So I'm a huge fan. Awesome. So I've shown you a bunch of stuff. OpenAPI in the API space, in my opinion, which is fairly humble but not totally. OpenAPI is a brave new world. It's changed how we develop APIs, but it's also changed how we manage the developer experience on APIs. And I wanted to kind of come here and show you this. I'm going to prompt Faye to put up the last poll if we can have it, just to kind of round it off and see where you started and see where you ended up. I think there's a bunch of things here where we can do the work to build the docs, but by doing the work to build the spec and generate the docs, we get a bunch of other things for free. So we get the mock servers and the Postman import that let other developers integrate with our APIs, and us. Support team use this a lot to debug things. I am using the OpenAPI specs to generate SDK code, which you didn't see today because I'm the maintainer of the Go library. We have PHP people. Dragonman Tank works for us. They don't need me on that side. And I generate the SDK off the spec. It's not just for documentation, and it's magical. What's interesting about this is I've been speaking on this topic for about 18 months. And in that time, I've gone from, it's the best way to write docs, to, oh, look, I can do this other stuff, to, oh, now I'm generating client codes from it. So who knows what will be in this space next time. Faye, can you pop up my last poll, please? Yeah, who knows what will be in this space if I was to give this talk in another 18 months? It's an open platform. So, for example, I am a contributor to OpenAPI. The upcoming 3.1 release will support webhooks. So, when you send an SMS with Vonage, you can sign up to get a delivery receipt. That's a callback. It's an incoming HTTP request that happens as a result of you sending an SMS. So you make an API request, and then we send you back a webhook at some point when we get your delivery receipt. You can also receive an SMS. That's not a callback. It's not a result of an earlier API call. That's an event happened and now I'm telling you about it. So it's a webhook. We're not currently able to describe those in OpenAPI. In the next release, we'll be able to. I wrote that proposal because it's an open spec, right? They have open meetings and an open issue list, and you can make a proposal and go and pitch it and write the spec changes. And if the technical steering committee think it's solid and going to be useful, they accept it, which is what happened. That's why I like this spec. Hi, Alistair. Are there framework-specific API builders, such as a recent version of Symfony? So there's a bunch of different things. Look up OpenAPI Tools, which is a Phil Sturgeon Matt Trask project. Wait, not that window, hold on, this one. Look up openapi.tools. And there's all sorts of different tool types, lots of different things listed there. And look at the code generators. I know there are some for Symfony. How recent are they? How good are they? Are they just for consuming APIs or for building APIs to publish? I don't know, but I'd love to know. So let me know on that. Sorry, Faye, you still have the poll up. Do you want to show us the results? Okay, woo. So I love that you picked the troll options. Too much YAML. I'm really interested to know kind of how you felt about this. So sounds interesting. I'd like to try it out. That's super nice. Because if you're using this stuff, probably it's on your radar, but if you don't have a reason to work with it all the time, then like where would you come across this stuff? At your favorite user group, of course. So yes, yes, good, happy, thank you. Mark Taylor is saying API platform can export OpenAPI, which is Symfony powered. That's useful. Andreas has linked us through to Postman docs on working with OpenAPI. Good. So I feel like I've started the conversation and you can manage this between yourselves. Awesome. If you have any last questions, please type quickly while I wrap up. I think your takeaway links are going to be, and I'll put these in chat once it's not my turn, definitely openapi.tools. I'll share the link to the Vonage API specs as well if you're interested, or just go to developer.nexmo.com and hit our API reference. If you want the coupon code, let me know and I will share that too. Yeah, no, I think that's it from me. I mentioned webhooks just there. I'm streaming on webhooks with the aforementioned Chris Tankersley tomorrow. So if you want to see that, we'll be on Twitch at 3 o'clock London time talking about webhooks. Are there some example repositories to test this? This is a good question. So for API specs, there's a classic pet store API spec that you can find on the OpenAPI initiative, like OpenAPI homepage. Examples, or you're really welcome to try the Vonage ones as examples as well and just see how they look with tools, make some calls, make me give you the coupon credit. Awesome.